This article was actually really interesting. It was talking about Instagram, TikTok, and just kind of like the overall trend of the social media space and where things have been and where they're heading. Now that Instagram and Facebook have doubled down on becoming a little bit more TikTok in the way that they serve up their algorithm. Um, the author starts off this piece talking about how Twitter is more of a people curated network. You actually have to go through and manually follow people and unfollow people, as opposed to an algorithm directly delivering to you people who you want to see. I kind of agree and I disagree. I think Twitter does a really good job of allowing people to block people and things like that. But you also have the bar on the right that says things that are trending that are always going to be more interesting than the thing that you're immediately looking at. So I guess that, like, in a way, Twitter's value proposition, as it says, the Twitter value proposition is that you can see anything that you want on Twitter, exactly what you want, and nothing more. That's like mostly true. I think that maybe in the early days of Twitter, that was more true than it is today. It's still, like I said, is majoritatively true in the sense that you can just unfollow people and mute different topics and things like that, which is much harder to do on things like Instagram and Facebook. But I think Twitter has its own inherent problems with the discoverability and how people follow you, and then what people will do to kind of like dive deep into individuals' pasts on Twitter is it's quite impressive, and it doesn't really maintain any semblance of an individual's privacy. Um, and then it kind of just talked about the evolution of Facebook, specifically when it comes to the news feed and the feed that Facebook launched, which actually received a whole lot of hate when it first went live. A lot of people really didn't like the concept of seeing content on the internet that wasn't directly from their friends. But then this sentence really kind of, I think, nailed the point that the company correctly intuited a significant gap between its user stated preference, no newsfeed, and their revealed preference, which is what they like the newsfeed quite a bit. I found something similar with my own SaaS business, actually, where it wasn't nowhere near on the scale of this, but with stenography, I was initially had launched it. When I initially launched stenography, it was actually manual in the sense that you had to highlight blocks of code and then send those blocks of code off to the server, where the server would do some work, and then it would call the AI, and then the AI would parse and understand the code and then send that back to the users. And users would tell me that they really liked this workflow, but the data, rather, their revealed preferences was telling a completely different story. The revealed preference was saying that nobody was really using it. I could see the amount of invocations, which is like the amount of times that the server has been pinged, because it uses a token model per month, and people just weren't using it. So I knew that I needed to create a feature that would allow it to happen automatically. So I actually had to go in and create a whole other layer on top of the API that's sole goal was to parse code before it actually even reached the end user. So this would automatically be firing in the background, giving the AI this kind of autonomy to be able to choose greedily the biggest blocks of code to explain on any particular code file and then go ahead and explain them. And I think it's interesting because you can see that social media companies and just companies in general do similar work where their goal is to algorithmically choose content that matches users' revealed preferences as opposed to the user's stated preferences. And, you know, in a world where the Kardashians, this actually is really also poignant. It's talking about the coming fall of the Kardashians. If you don't know the context around this, the Kardashians recently have been posting on Instagram to so their story saying make Instagram again. If we wanted TikTok, we could just have the genuine thing on TikTok. And Sam Lesson here actually makes a really good point, I think, about what the context of it means in the greater entertainment space, specifically as it refers to the kind of chart of how people get in content. So, pre-content, there was the People magazine where everybody just saw things on People magazine and they were like, did you hear what this celebrity did, XYZ? Then people found it more interesting to just know what their friends were doing, see who the new people, if Stacy and Ethan became Facebook official, that's actually more interesting than seeing what the red carpet is doing. And then we got reality TV shows like the Kardashians, which are professional friends that really started to kind of kill off the idea of your real friends because they were just constantly interesting. Then it took a step further with things like TikTok and YouTube recommendations and Netflix recommendations, where now algorithms are better than the Kardashians because now you can get most interesting content from anybody at any time because the Kardashians still have to show up to work. And then finally we get to the AI generated content, the Dollies of the world, where in the future there's a very high chance that people will be just leveraging artificial intelligence, seeding it with different content ideas, and then sending those off to a content farm to make content. And it's interesting because what is the value of content as a consumer? Content, I think, generally falls under the preference to be engaged. Hold on, I can actually just make this real quick. I think as a consumer, there's three main reasons that people consume content. So there is education, there is entertainment. Okay, go off, King. Now, how did that end up there? Okay, wait a second. Okay, entertainment. So these two, education and entertainment, are not surprising. I mean, you watch people on Twitch or Netflix for entertainment, and you go to school for education to be able to learn something. The third one, and this is interesting, I think that it's kind of transitory and harder to put into place, but I'll call this like practicing, which I don't think is a word. Practitioner. Practitioner is a real word. Like, this is someone who does the practice of something. For example, if I was thinking of like driver's ed. So driver's ed, let's grab this image, falls firmly within the education category, right? A F1 driver falls pretty firmly within the entertainment category. And then a bus driver falls very plainly within the practitioner category. And basically the way to think about this, or the way that I think about this in terms of like content, because obviously, as a consumer of the internet, so let's say that here's, you in the middle, hold on. So let's say this is you. And let's say that you just went to YouTube for the first time. Hold on. Let's say that you got a YouTube premium subscription. Copy. So you just got your YouTube premium subscription. This is you logging onto YouTube, and you are on the feed. And basically, the first things that you see are potential education videos. This also happens on, again, TikTok, but I'll get to TikTok in a second. Entertainment videos and practitioner videos, which in this case, again, fall very closely to actually the practitioner in this case would be the YouTuber. This is the person who is creating content to go on YouTube. So as an individual Joe, I think it is very similar to driving, where you can be any one of the three of these. You can choose by just having the skill of driving a car. Oh my God, that car is stupid. Hell yeah. Okay, so like driving can be any of these, right? You can, by having the skill of driving, you can be a practitioner, you can be a educator, or you can be an entertainer. People who create content on the internet are similar in the sense that on YouTube, you can fall under any of these categories as well. So you can also be a practitioner by creating videos or creating content for other people to watch. You can just be entertained on YouTube as a consumer, or you can do education as well. So I think the internet is interesting because it's a macrocosm that heavily favors these two because they're information products. But the making of information, the making of data actually firmly puts you within the practitioner category as well. So like the kind of flexibility of these apps is kind of interesting. And I don't really know where I'm going with this. I basically just started talking about this because I wanted to talk about revealed preferences versus hidden preferences, which is actually related to the topic that I want to talk about today. So like just running through this real quick, watching these mediums evolve is pretty interesting. I think what, AI generation is going to be very big in the content space in the next couple of years. So that's something that, is going to have to be kept an eye on, specifically when it comes to generating of not even just misinformation, not disinformation, not something that's necessarily particularly hostile or particularly helpful. I'm actually more worried about the noise on the internet that doesn't really, again, move conversation forward, I guess is a way to put it. And we're probably going to get a lot of that type of AI content. We're going to get a lot of AI content that isn't necessarily boundary pushing in terms of writing. And we're not going to get a lot of AI content that's boundary pushing in terms of art as well. And that means that, if art, and actually there was an interesting article that was talking about how artists really aren't taking risks anymore anyway. And being able to, let me see if I can find that article, have a conversation with, the art that you're making is very critical. Hmm. Okay, I can't find it, but if I find it, I will post it. But yeah, so it's interesting to kind of see these mediums evolve. The author actually ends this piece with a pretty provocative point that Meta, if it survives the kind of TikTok challenge, will be on its way to a moat enjoyed by the likes of Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, which all have real world aspects to their differentiation. And I think that that's kind of interesting because basically the author's point is that by having a fuck ton of data and a fuck ton of GPUs and a strong foot into the VR space, if these mediums do progress like the gaming scene, I think a lot of this author's argument is built off of the concept that social media will evolve the same way that the gaming scene evolved. It says, gaming was the first to make this progression into the 3D era. I think that, like, yeah, yes and no, right? Like, it makes sense for video games to be 3D because of the aspects of what video games are, right? Like, video games are a thing where you are stepping into a fantastical world, fantasy. You're stepping into something that doesn't exist in the real world and has characters that aren't supposed to be real. So I think that it made sense for video games to move from 3D to VR. For actual real life, I think video is actually quite representative of people's day-to-day experience, and allows us to capture better sides of ourselves. I mean, this lighting and this camera is very flattering. You know what I mean? There's the flattering look of what we've built with this technology so far. And also, I'd like to add, is still relatively cost prohibitive. So I think that gaming industry has been able to eat a lot of this cost. I mean, even like, how much did Cyberpunk cost? Cyberpunk total cost of development. So if it costs $316 million for Cyberpunk 2077 to be made, I just don't see consumers being able to bridge that gap. Obviously, even as a technologist, I've seen technology grow a lot over the past couple of years, and I've been very thankful to work alongside companies that are really pushing the narrative in terms of what artificial intelligence can do and what you can do with a whole bunch of computers working in chorus. And I've been able to see technologies like Obsidian also kind of like come out of the ether and allow people to really engage with their computer as a tool for thought. But I don't necessarily think that social media will bridge that gap. I don't know. The way that the social media environment currently is that it's very much held up by large audiences and advertising money. So if either of those fall out or bottom out, then it's going to be hard to really see how computing moves forward through social networking. But I guess we'll see. Obviously, being the human species is one that needs communication to survive. It needs relationships. It needs communities, and without those, the human person falls apart. So, in some shape or form, there is going to have to always be some of this type of technology, and maybe we'll head back into a world where things are a little bit more RSS, a little bit more NeoCities. If anyone's seen NeoCities, hold on, let me pull up these NeoCities. NeoCities, sad girl. Remember when the web looked like this? Remember when the web used to look like this and we were all just on Sad Girl Online? We were all just running around with our shrines in cyberspace and stuff like that. I mean, it was cool. It was very fun. But also, this is still a newer version of the internet. The real version of the internet that's like old is like Paul Graham's website, which is like even more NeoCities. That's just a Y Combinator. Let's see. Essays. Yeah, like just links, just straight links. You click one and then you scroll and it's just text, and text is hyper compressed. This will be on the internet forever. Right? For what it's worth, I think that the amount of compute and resources made to retain and require these also goes up. Actually, I'm just noticing that my cursor isn't showing. Why can't I show my cursor? Hold on. All right, I'm just going to finish this thought. So if the environmental stuff gets more and more real for the world, and it's showing that it will, given our best, data about what's going on with climate change, there might be a world where we don't have access to internet 24/7 at mega gigabits bandwidth. I think we are going to prioritize it very heavily. I think as a society, internet will probably be one of the last things to fall because its lack of presence is immediately noted. I mean, people usually get over it, I think, within a week. But like the communication network, again, as a species that pretty much thrives off of communicating, really requires us to have a strong net to be able to communicate under. So the internet probably has a great chance of surviving that, whatever that world looks like. So anyway, yeah. So VR and 3D just take so much data to work with, so they can't really be put onto a small text fits in kilobytes. Like you can have thousands upon thousands of notes inside of a single text file, and those kilobytes can be very, very sticky. They can exist through many lifetimes. So I think that it's convenient for information and advertisers for things to be higher next to like the video section, but in the VR section for gaming. But realistically, text will always be around on the internet and will always kind of be the dominant mode